What's up, y'all? So, just got back from Oxnard, California, in Cowboys Training Camp, and just what an experience, man! What an absolute experience! Got to hang out with my guy Nick Eatman, Chris Beam. Shout out Storyline. For anybody that doesn't know, I'm gonna post this in our Storyline community on Twitter, of course. But anybody who's maybe not part of the community, doesn't listen to Cowboys Storyline with Nick Eatman. We created basically this group around listeners of Nick Eatman's Storyline podcast. 7 of us went out to California. We got to be on the show with Nick Eatman and Chris Beam for about a half hour. Hung out with Kyle Yeomans, Eatman, and Tommy Yarish and Beam and all these guys a couple nights. Got to throw back with them. Just dudes that are just cool as hell, man. Just long story short, just great dudes. Had a great time hanging out with them, and at camp, we got to meet with Isaiah Stenbeck for a few minutes. Ambar Garcia, super sweet, just super nice, dude. We got to shake hands with Osa and Wanye, and just what an absolute experience. I say experience of a lifetime, but I think we're going to make this an annual thing. So anybody who's part of our group wants to go next year to Oxnard, maybe we can figure out how to get more people involved, but we'll figure that out down the road. As far as what I saw in camp, I really wanted to see these running backs, but it's tough to evaluate them. We've got a lot of, we were there for the Rams practice, and it's tough to evaluate these guys because you've got backup offensive linemen for the Cowboys going against the Rams starters. Even though it's against a different team, it's not 100%. Guys really aren't going to the ground every time. There are some pops, some big hits. Guys do go to the ground, but you're not really tackling. You're not really breaking tackles. And so it's tough to evaluate what's really happening. I think Saturday here, you'll get a better shot, but you still won't see a ton of the starters. So it's still going to be tough to evaluate. But the running back position is the one where we have the most competition. It's, wide receiver, there's a lot of competition, but running back, there's not really a number one set right now. It's probably between, I would say, Javonte Williams and with Miles Sanders being hurt, really just Jadon Blue at this point. And so I think both guys will make the team. I think it's going to be a 1-2 punch is my guess. We'll have to see what Miles Sanders does when he comes back. Everybody knows that I love Deuce, but I think it's a very, very big long shot for Deuce to make this team at this point. He was on the outs, I think, without getting hurt, and now with his hamstring, it's not looking good for him. And so I won't get into details of my love and support for Deuce. I love the guy, but where does he fit really on this team? Because you got Turpin, he's going to take some touches in the backfield, kind of does the Deuce role of like a scat back almost. You have Blue, who's a speed guy, really agile, and he's bigger, can do more than Deuce. Williams is pretty agile too, but he's a little bit bigger. Sanders, I just don't know where Deuce fits at this point, so I don't think Deuce is going to make this team. Sanders being hurt really hurts his chances at making this team, but I think if they keep 3, we'll have to see what with Sanders, because Maffa's right there too. Maffa's a big boy. He could be the hammer that you need, so it's just going to be tough, between Sanders, Maffa, Blue, and Williams at this point. So really excited to see how that battle shakes out. Wide receiver wise, Brooks was making some plays at camp, and he's kind of the guy that everybody forgets about. He's not really exciting because he's just lower in the depth chart, but he was making some plays, and he and Milton hooked up on a huge, I don't know, was it 60, 70 yards? Just a huge throw in camp. He had a touchdown against the Rams deep, and he's kind of the forgotten guy because you also have Mingo, who I think is making a play for 3, but I don't think he's going to get there. I think Tolbert, according to Shoddy and what Shoddy said, I think Tolbert's probably got that wide receiver 3 locked down. And Tolbert's kind of a boring guy too, but he's just a steady dude who does his job well. Not really flashy, but he's there when you need him. So I think Tolbert will be your wide receiver 3 if I had to guess. So at 4, you've got a competition between Turpin and Mingo and Brooks and Flournoy, and there's a lot of really good names there. So it's crazy that with the addition of Pickens, this really went from at wide receiver 2, who's going to, which of these guys is going to step up at wide receiver 2? Is it going to be Tolbert, Mingo? It's kind of yucky situation. And with the addition of Pickens, it's like, well, now who are we going to keep off the field? At wide receiver 3, 4, 5, there's a lot of good names there that I like a lot. And so that's another position that I'm keeping my eyes on. Quarterback Milton pretty good the couple days that we were there. I know he's been hit or miss throughout camp, but he was completing a lot of passes when we were there this last Monday and Tuesday. So he looked all right. He's got a cannon on him. It's just not the most accurate guy in the world. But if he can hone that in, dial that in behind Dak, maybe he's a successor down the road. But that'll be probably a battle down the road between him and somebody else if we keep Milton around for the long term. So that's another interesting camp battle there, or not really a battle at quarterback, but just a guy to keep an eye on. Offensive line, tough to evaluate again. Guys aren't really going 100%, and so it's tough to evaluate really who's shining there on the OL. You got a couple guys banged up and hurt as well, so be tough to evaluate that position at this point. But I kind of who your starters are going to be once everybody gets healthy. When you look at tight end, Ferguson looks good. That's a guy who I think is going to have a big year. I think the Cowboys were absolutely brilliant for signing Ferguson, extending Ferguson. They got a lot of flack for getting him done before Micah and some of the other guys. But I'm like, you can negotiate all these at the same time. Negotiating Micah or Bland or Smith or whoever doesn't preclude you from negotiating with Ferguson. And if Ferguson has a big year, and me and Yeomans were talking about this for a little bit, if Ferguson has a big year, first off, he's a free agent next year, so he can go do whatever he wants to do. You don't own any sort of rights to him, so he can go do whatever the heck he wants. And so he's going to cost more if he has a big year. It's going to be tougher to retain him. He's going to go somewhere that's going to pay him. And so for the Cowboys to pay him early and pay him as the 7th highest paid tight end in the NFL, it's a drop in the bucket, because when you look at tight end salaries, it's really not that much, right? Especially when you get past the first couple guys. So to lock him down through 2029, which is the duration of Dak's contract, to have him locked down in here in Dallas the remainder of that time, I think that's a huge move, especially considering what he's about to do, in my opinion, this year. I really think that with the addition of Pickens, Ferguson might be the guy who benefits the most. I mean, how are teams going to cover CD Pickens and Ferguson, especially if Ferguson returns to 2023 form? So that's a guy that I've got my eyes on. And I talked about running backs, but you can kind of throw Lipke into the running back tight end conversation as well. He's a big boy. You see him in camp, and you don't realize how big these guys are. But he's a good-looking dude. They ran some single back formations with Lipke in the backfield as the lone back, so I'm excited for that. Can't just pass out of that formation. He can't just be your pass pro guy. You got to make sure you run the ball with him there too, here and there. But it's exciting to see him getting some snaps. I think that Shotty might have a plan for him. On the defensive side, oh boy, cornerbacks were getting whooped all day. Both days. They were getting absolutely whooped out there. And Mukwamu didn't look very good. He's getting whooped by every receiver on the depth chart. I know we got injuries out there. Reville's not playing just yet. Diggs isn't in. So some of these guys are banged up. But it's a position that we might need some help. I'm not really sure. Elam looked okay. He had a couple of pass breakups there during camp. He probably looked the best out of all the corners that I personally was able to see. But the corners they're struggling right now. I'll say that. Corners are struggling. We'll see what they do in live action in these preseason games. But that's a position that is struggling quite a bit. Defensive line, especially the interior, struggling. Toya, again, seeing him in person, just a ginormous human being. Solomon Thomas, a ginormous and jacked human being. It's a sight to behold when you see these guys, even just stretching, how jacked some of these dudes are and how big they are. But Toya, hopefully he can step up and be your big one. Mazi's getting washed out of basically every play. So I think Mazi, after this season, his time might be done in Dallas. If they had more depth, it wouldn't even surprise me if they had cut him this year, or he was a practice squad guy, or I'm sure there's a team probably take a chance on him. So I'm not sure about practice squad or not, but Mazi, I don't see his future here in Dallas after this season. He's not looking very good. Not looking good, and I feel bad for the guy because his career has been kind of marred by changes at the DC. They want him doing different roles every year. They're asking him to shed weight again this season to go be a hybrid 1T, 3T and shoot the gap and get in the backfield. But he's not getting in the backfield hardly at all. From what I was seeing, he's getting washed out of basically every play. I mean, he's going 5 yards to the left, 5 yards to the right, and he's just sitting in the linebacker's laps, and it has not been good for Mazi Smith. So that's a guy that is struggling mightily, and I just don't know what we're going to do in the middle of the defense. The only guy we have really is Toya there, who personally I was able to see He was doing okay. He was doing all right, but run defense is going to be a struggle again this year, guys. It's going to be a struggle, and that's my biggest concern about this team is how are they going to stop the run? And obviously, it's more than just who you have in the middle. You got your edges, who the edges are looking pretty good. That's one say I'll say about that. The defensive line, you have some really good edges with Sam Williams. I'm not going to go through. There's like 8 of them that are good players, and Micah's not even there yet. So go figure. I think the edges will be really good. Linebackers, we'll see. Obviously, you've got some new guys there with Sanborn and Murray. Murray hasn't been in, but Sanborn is looking pretty good. Obviously, you've got the young kid there who, he's looking good too. He's more slender than I thought. But he's looking good. He's a hard hitter for being he's a tall guy, a tall kid. And that's Maris that I'm talking about, Maris Leofau. Tall kid, very slender, but man, is he a hitter. That's kind of the same thing as Overshown, just skinnier dudes, slender builds, tall guys, but can fly and are instinctive. And that's super important. And he's looking good. But it's going to be interesting to see how they defend the run with the middle of this defensive line being kind of the weak point, of this defense. And so that's a concern for me that I'll be keeping an eye on as well. I think what their plan has to be this season is kind of like what it was in 2023. And I don't love the formula, but if they keep these games super close all the time, teams are just going to run on them, I think. And you saw at the end of 2023 where the Bills were the first team to really figure that out. Then all of a sudden, every team is starting to run consistently on Dallas. But I think the plan has to be try to put up a bunch of points and then go rush the passer. Because like I said, you have these really good edges and specifically pass rushing edges. That your second round pick, Resurraku, is looking phenomenal. We'll see him once he gets some actual live action against the Rams this Saturday. But he's looking very nice. You have obviously one of the best in the league in Micah. Then you have like Sam Williams and Nealand, and you brought Fowler back, and you've got all these guys that can rush the passer. So you've got to play to the strength of your defense, which is rushing the passer, but you got to be able to put them into second and third and long. You can't let them run the ball on first and second down on you and make it a 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, because you're just going to get whooped if you keep doing that. And one of the ways you prevent teams from running the ball is you score a bunch of points. Like I said, in 2023, that's what they did. But eventually, at some point, you're going to run into teams who aren't going to let you score all the time. And so you still got to be able to play defense. And I don't know, my concern and the reason I don't know if this team necessarily is a Super Bowl contender is I'm not convinced that they'll be able to stop the run on a consistent basis against good running teams who want to consistently run the ball. That's my biggest concern for this season. I need to see improvement there, and if they can improve there, I'll have much higher hopes, but that's to be determined. So with all that said, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and hang it up, but let me know what you think. Anybody who wants to come out with us that's part of the storyline group next year, you can reach out to any of us at any point. You know who the contacts are in the group. That's me, Irene, and we have some of the others. But if you want to come out to Oxnard, let us know. We start making preps for next year, and probably right after the season ends, we'll probably start making preps for 2026 training camp. So we'll keep an eye on that. But let me know what your thoughts are on the team as it is today. Let me know what you're excited about in camp to see maybe in these preseason games. And with all that said, man, I'll catch y'all later.